Chapter 13 The Song of the Sirens. Smee provided James with the perfect opportunity to capture Tinkerbell with his suggestion to host a party for the Lost Boys, but he needed to plan carefully. James didn't want Peter to know he was involved. He felt terrible, really, starting off like this, deceiving his friends in this way. He wished he was just throwing a party for his friends to show them he could be trusted, but he hadn't been smart about his arrival at Neverland, landing right there in the lagoon in front of Peter and the Lost Boys. If he hadn't been so excited to see them, so happy to be home again, he would have thought better of announcing his return. He should have been more stealthy, showed up in secret, and hidden himself away, and then found a way to capture Tinkerbell. But it was too late for stealthy plans. Peter knew he was there, and he had to make the best of the situation. The crew was thrilled that James had suggested they dock the Jolly Roger at a dainty island in the shape of a skull. It's the perfect pirate hideout. I bet there is no other crew with digs like this. Imagine all the treasure we can hide in there. We don't have to worry about another crew taking our loot. Skylights also seemed to approve of Neverland. We can use Neverland as our home base between campaigns, if you think it's safe, Captain. Who else is here aside from the Lost Boys? James didn't know how to break it to the crew that he wasn't intending to leave Neverland. Not once he was back from taking Tinkerbell to the many kingdoms. He didn't want anything to distract them from their plan, and he wasn't ready for all the questions the crew would have if he told them he had no intention of remaining a pirate. No sense in camping on Skull Island when we have everything we need on the ship. Let's focus on our plan to capture Tinkerbell and getting her to the many kingdoms, and then we will be free to decide what to do next. The men seemed satisfied with that answer, and none of them were the sorts who shied away from a bit of skullduggery, so they were keen on James's plan. All right, men, I'm going to check in on Mr. Smee. James found him in the galley, surrounded by bubbling pots cooking on the fire. Smee, my old friend, I see you're already at work preparing for the party. Is there anything in here that would make someone sleep? James was poking around at the various spices and teas in the pantry. He could see he was annoying his old friend. What's the matter with you, man? Am I disturbing your system? Have I thrown everything out of order? Asked James, smiling. I'm sorry, sir, but yes. Please let me, Smee said, going to the pantry. I know Captain Blackbeard had a sleeping draught in his tea every evening before bed. Just let me locate it, though I'm not sure how effective it was, as he never seemed to sleep. Why do you ask? He said, pushing past James and locating the bottle and handing it to him. Would this be enough to make all the Lost Boys fall asleep? James asked, holding up the bottle. I'd say not, but we have more. Blackbeard always made sure I kept it well stocked, said Smee, narrowing his eyes. What do you have in mind, sir? He asked. I want you to make the most magnificent, most delicious, and most enticing chocolate cake, and I want you to lace it with this sleeping draught. We are going to catch ourselves a fairy. Excuse me for saying so, sir, but this is foolhardy. Peter and the Lost Boys will know it was you. I don't trust those odd sisters, and I can't believe you agreed to this insane plan of theirs. We've gone over this, Smee. What choice did I have? It was the only way to make sure my mother would be taken care of. If you saw her, Mr. Smee, you'd understand why I had to make a deal with the odd sisters. But the only way they will agree to give me my fondest wish is if I agree to bring them Tinkerbell. I thought you got your fondest wish. We're in Neverland. It's all you've ever wanted. Smee furrowed his brow. James was surprised. He had thought that if anyone knew his secret heart's desire, it would be Smee. There is only one other thing I want above all things, and Lucinda has promised she has the power to make it so. Besides, Peter won't know. While everyone is asleep, I will use Tinkerbell's dust to get us to the many kingdoms so I can deliver her to Lucinda. By the time everyone wakes up, we will be back, and we will pretend we had been put to sleep as well, and act just as surprised as they are that Tinker Bell is missing. Peter won't suspect a thing. It's brilliant, said James, looking very pleased with himself. But is it right to take Tinker Bell against her will? She was sent here against her will, Smee. Take it from the home she loves. I'm taking her back to where she belongs. Are you sure she isn't from Pixie Hollow? Pixie Hollow? James didn't know what he was talking about. You told me about it countless times as a child. You don't remember? You said it was the secret heart of Neverland, where all the fairies are born. James didn't remember. As far as he knew, Tinker Bell was the only fairy in Neverland. I don't know, Smee. I'm not an expert on fairy lore. Lucinda says Tinker Bell is from the fairylands in the many kingdoms, but doesn't remember. She says her memory will return once she is home again. I don't know, Master James. I think you should have dealt with Circe. From what you've told me, it doesn't sound like Lucinda can be trusted. Besides, Tinker Bell seems very fond of Neverland and of Peter. So is it fair to take her away? James didn't understand where Smee had gotten all of this. How do you know so much about Neverland, Smee? From you, of course, Master James. You talked of nothing else as a child. Well, nevertheless, Circe doesn't have the power to give me what I truly want, and her mother does, and that is the last we will say of it, said James, not giving Smee the opportunity to ask him any more questions. Yes, sir. Then it's settled, James said, smiling. I was going to ask you if you have everything you need, but it looks like we have more than enough. James looked at the piles of provisions Smee had picked up while they were in the many kingdoms. Ask as many men as you need to help you with the preparations for the party. Smee, I want this to be perfect. Don't you worry, sir. I have it all well in hand. They had 3 days before the big party, and James knew Smee would do everything in his power to make sure it was a success, even if he did have his concerns. The fact was, James shared them. He couldn't stop thinking of the ladies of the Deadwoods. He kept seeing Circe's face and felt a deep sense of shame in betraying her. But she couldn't give him what he truly wanted. She had said so. It made sense to him that her mothers would be more powerful, and it would be within their grasp to give him his greatest wish. But Circe's warnings about her mothers kept creeping into his mind, and he worried he had made a terrible mistake. The fact was, the longer he was in Neverland, the more uncertain he was about everything. He wished he could feel the way he had when his ship was making its descent, when he didn't have a care in the world. But now fear was creeping into his heart, and he had a deep, abiding sense that it had been lingering there far longer than he would have liked to admit, ever since he put on his boot buckles. Was Blackbeard right? Was James afraid to realize his dream? Was he truly afraid of getting his wish from Lucinda for fear it wouldn't meet his expectations? Things certainly hadn't gone as he would have liked so far. Peter and the Lost Boys weren't at all happy to see him, and now he was going to trick them so he could kidnap Tinker Bell. Maybe Smee was right. Perhaps he was going about this all the wrong way, and the fear of how it might go all wrong was mounting within him, making his heart pound like a ticking clock. After checking in with the men once more to make sure they were clear on their plan for the night of the party, he decided to distract himself from his worries by exploring the neighboring areas around Skull Rock. Since Neverland was comprised of islands, James took a small boat and ventured out. He never forgot how beautiful it was in Neverland, or the feeling it gave him when he was there. All cities had their own heartbeat, their own soul, but this was greater than the difference between how one may feel in the country as opposed to the city. This was another world, and it felt like coming home. Skull Rock was situated near the Hangman's Tree, the entrance to where the Lost Boys lived. James could see the large dead tree from his boat, and he wondered what Peter and the Lost Boys were doing now. On the other side of Skull Rock was the Mermaid Lagoon. Determining it was best to stay out of Peter and the Lost Boys' way until the party. But he decided he would pay the mermaids a visit. It was strange for James to be back in the place he considered home and feel like an outsider, to feel like he didn't belong. But he guessed that would all change once he brought Tinkerbell back to the many kingdoms and Lucinda granted him his final wish. Even though he had already waited a lifetime for all this to happen, 3 more days felt like an eternity. In 3 days, he would get what he always truly wanted. As the ship glided into the Mermaid Lagoon, he could hear the voices of the mermaids talking to one another, their lilting voices instantly bringing back the memories of visiting them when he was a small boy. Mermaid Lagoon was almost entirely hidden rock pool, and its waters were deep blue. As James approached, he saw several mermaids on their rocks, gazing up at the evening sky while listening to the splash of the waterfall behind them. Illuminated by the moonlight, he couldn't believe he was actually there, and that his memories of the place had remained so vivid in his imagination for all these years. He just sat there in his boat watching them and taking in the beauty of the lagoon, feeling a rush of happiness in his heart to be in the place he had longed to be for so many years. "We know you're lurking there, James. Come over and say hello," said one of the mermaids. She had long, dark hair and eyes with features so delicate and cute, she reminded James of a little rabbit. "Good evening to you, ladies. Please forgive me for disturbing you," he said, smiling at the mermaids. And it suddenly hit James in that moment that Neverland was real. He didn't understand why it hadn't hit him before. Perhaps it was the excitement of finally being there again and seeing his old friends Peter and the Lost Boys. But something about seeing the mermaids, these almost magical beings that weren't part of his own world, made it all seem real. He hadn't realized how much he had let his parents make him doubt himself or his memories. And though he staunchly pursued his dream, he realized there was a tiny bit of him that wondered if it wasn't all in his imagination. But he was really there. He was in Neverland, and he couldn't be happier. "So, you found your way back to Neverland after all these years," said a mermaid with golden hair and an impish smile. She was splashing her tail in the rock pool as a cat might flick its tail when agitated. "We all wondered if you would ever make your way back, but I guess Peter was right. He knew you'd find Neverland again," said a ginger-haired mermaid, giving him the side eye. James didn't understand why no one in Neverland seemed happy to see him again. Though only flashing, his memories of Neverland were always good, and he started to wonder if it wasn't his impression of Neverland he was wrong about. But he reminded himself that everything would be better in 3 days. "What do you mean?" James squinted to see which of the mermaids had said that. It was dark in the lagoon, and the light of the moon was now obscured by clouds. "I remember your wailing the day you were claimed. It was terrible and hurt my ears. I have to admit I was happy when your mother finally found you. But your cries were nothing compared to your poor mother's. We could hear her all the way from the labyrinth of longing, crying your name again and again," said the dark-haired mermaid. "I wonder if she's still there now." "Don't be silly. James isn't a lost boy. Only the mothers of lost boys are trapped in the labyrinth," said the golden-haired mermaid. "What are you talking about?" asked James. "What is this labyrinth?" James didn't remember any such place, and he was sure the mermaids were teasing him. "What are you doing in Neverland anyway, James? There's nothing for you here. Peter and the Lost Boys won't trust you. You're an adult." "It seems like a foolish journey to make all the way from London," said the ginger-haired mermaid. "Peter does trust me. We're old friends." James could see the mermaids didn't believe him, and he couldn't blame them. He wasn't sure he believed his own words. And if he doesn't, then I am sure he will soon. I will prove to him I am his friend." The mermaids laughed. "Is that what you think you're doing, James? Making friends?" James wished he had just stayed back at the ship. With every encounter he had in Neverland, he felt more alone, and the mermaid was right. He was there to make friends, but now he felt foolish for thinking Peter or anyone in Neverland would embrace him as such. He had spent his life alone. He had no friends growing up except for Mr. Smee. He didn't have time for them, and the few people he did try to get to know didn't understand him or his obsession with Neverland. Now he was starting to wonder if he had wasted his life and missed opportunities because his entire focus growing up was finding Neverland again. And now he was an adult, and no one there liked him. It was like he was the villain of a fairy tale, the dreaded pirate, and that was not the role he wanted to play in this story. He wanted to talk to Circe, even if it meant facing her disappointment in him. "You have no friends here, James. With no way home, you might as well see if you can find your way back through the labyrinth. If you listen closely, you can hear all the mothers of the Lost Boys crying for their sons, endlessly searching for them," said the dark-haired mermaid. "Their mournful song carries on the wind to our lagoon." "Where is this place?" asked James. "You should remember. You wandered in there. That is how your mother found you so many years ago," said the impish mermaid, laughing at him. "Tell me where it is," he demanded, getting angry. "Don't play games with me." "It's hidden, of course. Peter doesn't want the other Lost Boys wandering unless they be claimed as well," said the fair-haired mermaid. "Then why was I allowed into the labyrinth?" demanded James. "That is a question for Peter," said the bunny-faced mermaid. "You lie," said James. "Peter didn't send me away." He turned his little boat around to leave the lagoon. "Believe as you like, James, but if you want to know the truth, you simply have to listen carefully and follow the sounds of the heartbroken, and you will find the labyrinth." "Poppycock!" James could hear the sounds of the mermaids' laughter as he rowed from the lagoon and wondered what he was doing there. He had risked his life to get to Neverland, and everyone there seemed to hate him no matter what he did. "Everything will be fine in 3 days," he kept telling himself. "Everything will be as it was meant to be." But he couldn't stop thinking of Circe's warnings, and he was starting to fear she was right. Later that night, James tossed and turned in his bed, wondering if what the mermaids had said was true. The idea of the Lost Boys' mothers endlessly searching for their sons was a horrible thought. He had never considered what it must have been like for his mother all those years ago. He had only thought of himself. He had spent his life resenting his mother for claiming him, and now he couldn't help but think of her alone in London, grieving for her dead husband and for her son who had abandoned her. And what of Peter's and the Lost Boys' mothers? Were they too grieving for their lost sons? Had so much time passed that they were mere spirits trapped forever in the labyrinth, searching for their sons? The idea sent a shiver through James. He pulled up his blankets tight under his chin and tried to banish these horrid thoughts from his head and remember what was important. He was back in Neverland at long last, and soon he would have what he truly wanted: friends.